Okay, let's dive right into this. I want to share something with you today that is just absolutely profound. I've been studying this incredible lecture given by Radhanath Swami on April 1st, 2010 in Chowpatty, India. It's focused on the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 16, Text 24. And you know, what makes this specific lecture so captivating is that it actually gives us a roadmap, literally a step-by-step guide for moving from material despair to pure, unconditional devotion. If you've ever felt like you're just running on a treadmill of temporary pleasures, trust me, this explainer is going to shift your entire perspective.
To map out this journey, we're going to cover 6 areas today. 1. The illusion of material pleasure. 2. The urgency of seeking shelter. 3. The humility of the Guru. 4. Unconditional devotion and love. 5. The power of association. And finally, a quick summary of our main points.
So, let's kick things off with Section 1, the illusion of material pleasure.
The lecture starts off by hitting us with a really hard truth. Even in the absolute highest heavenly planets, suffering is the underlying basis of material life. I mean, we constantly think, right? We think if I just move to a better city, or if I finally get that promotion, we'll be perfectly happy. But Radhanath Swami uses this brilliant kind of visceral analogy for worldly enjoyment. He calls it chewing the chewed. Picture this. Somebody is chewing on a piece of sugarcane, extracting all that sweet juice, and then they spit the dry pulp on the ground. Then, someone else walks by, picks up that exact same dry, dirty pulp, and tries to chew it again, hoping to get some juice. It sounds crazy, but we do this constantly. We try to invent newer, fancier ways to experience the exact same basic sensory pleasures: eating, sleeping, mating, defending. We're just throwing different colors of paint on the same dry pulp. It never ever truly satisfies the heart.
And this brings us to a really dangerous part of that cycle. Radhanath Swami says, "The seed of suffering is within all pleasures of this world." That line really stuck with me. Because our worldly enjoyments are temporary, they inevitably plant deep, deep seeds of emotional suffering. Basically, the more intensely you enjoy a temporary thing, the deeper the roots of anxiety go when you inevitably lose it. We see this vividly in the story of Mother Aditi from the Vedic texts. She was highly exalted, the mother of the demigods, living up in the heavens with perfect physical health, the whole shebang. Yet, she was in intense, burning anxiety. Why? Because her children had lost all their wealth and property to their enemies. Her emotional attachment was the exact root of her suffering.
Let's move to Section 2, the urgency of seeking shelter.
So, when that material illusion shatters, when we realize we're just chewing the chewed and planting seeds of our own anxiety, it forces this really powerful realization. Casual, laid-back spiritual practice, it just isn't going to cut it anymore. We need real, urgent shelter. This kind of urgency is perfectly exemplified by the ancient king Parikshit Maharaj. Talk about a deadline. He was cursed to die in exactly 7 days, no extensions. He didn't approach his spiritual master just to go through the motions. He wasn't falling asleep during the lecture or thinking about his weekend plans because, well, he didn't have a weekend. He was utterly, desperately engrossed in the present moment, listening to the Bhagavatam so he could attain spiritual perfection before his time ran out.
And that's the crucial takeaway here. Approaching a guru is not a fashion, not a superstition, not just some social custom. Think of the great warrior Arjuna, who was literally burning in emotional anguish right before receiving the Bhagavad Gita. I realized from this that we have to approach a genuine spiritual master not because it looks good to our friends, but because we are utterly starving for the Lord's shelter. You have to feel that desperate hunger.
Which brings us to Section 3, the humility of the Guru. Okay, so you're burning in material anguish. You're desperately begging for help. How does a true spiritual master actually respond to that? This is where we get into the beautiful concept of Parampara. It's the authorized system of disciplic succession. Going back to Mother Aditi, when she approached her husband, the incredibly powerful Kashyapa Muni, begging for a solution to her anxiety, he showed zero false ego. He didn't sit there and say, "Behold my brilliant original genius, I've invented a brand new method to save you." No way. He humbled himself and said he was simply going to repeat the exact process he had heard from his own guru, Lord Brahma. A bonafide guru is kind of like a humble postal worker. They deliver the message exactly as it was given to them, without trying to take any of the credit.
Let's look at Section 4, unconditional devotion and love. When we look at what this kind of humble submission actually produces, man, it opens the door to the ultimate transformation of the heart. What really fascinated me in the Swami's lecture is this stark contrast in how people approach spirituality. Generally, you've got 3 camps. The first group is seeking material enjoyment. That's karma. The second group is completely frustrated by the world and just wants liberation from the pain. That's moksha. But if you think about it, both of those are still fundamentally about me. My enjoyment or my relief? Pure devotion is a whole different ballgame. It means desiring absolutely nothing for oneself. You only want to serve the Lord unconditionally.
To really paint a picture of what this desireless love looks like in real life, Radhanath Swami shared this incredibly charming story about a simple fruit vendor and baby Krishna. Now, back in those days, they didn't use paper money. They bartered. When baby Krishna heard the vendor calling out, he was so excited he ran to her with a little handful of grains to trade. But he was so small and just so enthusiastic that the grains were spilling out all over the place. By the time he actually reached her, he had almost nothing left in his tiny hands to give.
But here's the beautiful part. The fruit vendor was so completely captivated by the innocent, radiant smile of this little boy that she didn't care at all about getting paid. She happily took the best fruit she had and just piled them into his little arms. She wanted absolutely nothing in return except to see him smile. When she turned around later, her fruit basket was miraculously filled with actual physical jewels. But the physical wealth didn't even matter to her. What put her in ecstasy was the jewel that Krishna had already placed in her heart, the jewel of pure love for him. She attained ultimate perfection just by wanting to give him pleasure.
And that leads us to Section 5, the power of association.
So the big question is, how do we develop that kind of fearless, unconditional love in our own crazy, turbulent lives? Well, think about the legendary boy saint Prahlada Maharaj. He is the perfect example of this fearless state. Imagine you're walking along and suddenly a highly venomous snake slithers right up to you, looking you dead in the eye. You'd be terrified, right? I know I would, but Prahlada Maharaj was literally thrown into a pit of hundreds of these highly venomous snakes, and he felt zero fear. None. Why? Because his consciousness was unconditionally absorbed in remembering the Lord. He knew his soul couldn't be bitten, and he just continued loving the Lord in that terrifying situation.
I discovered from the lecture that we can actually awaken this exact same fearless urgency and devotion just by associating with sincere devotees. Association, or satsang, is not just a material interaction. It is literally divine grace. When we surround ourselves with people who have this genuine, burning hunger for God, it rubs off on us. Through this pure association, our everyday routines, our chanting, our reading, they stop being dry rituals, and they transform into a real manifestation of divine grace. Once we're truly immersed in that kind of association, we finally realize the absolute essence of all Vedic knowledge. It's so beautifully captured in Vallabha Acharya's mantra, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, which translates to, Krishna is my only shelter. Not our bank accounts, not the government, not even our families. Krishna is our one and only true refuge.
All right, let's wrap things up with Section 6, Summary of Main Points.
We've covered some incredibly deep philosophical ground today from this amazing 2010 lecture. So, what did we actually learn? Let's recap. First, we have to recognize that material pleasure is just an illusion, it's chewing the chewed, and it always acts as the seed of suffering. Second, we shouldn't despair when life gets tough. Those anxieties are actually golden opportunities to urgently seek true spiritual shelter, just like Kashyapa Maharaj. Third, when we do seek that shelter, we need a bona fide guru who humbly repeats the Parampara teachings without any false ego. Fourth, our ultimate goal shouldn't be selfish gain or just escaping pain, but pure devotion, wanting nothing but unconditional service, like that simple fruit vendor. And finally, the key that unlocks this entire process is satsang, the association of pure devotees, which miraculously awakens our dormant spiritual hunger.
As we close out this explainer, I want to leave you with a deeply provocative question to reflect on. In a world that is so full of temporary, fleeting pleasures and guaranteed anxieties, where are you truly seeking your shelter? Think about that. Thank you so much for joining me today to unpack this profound wisdom. Keep that question in your heart, and I'll see you in the next explainer.